Gimel Hey.
Okay. A person may attach a condition to his Erev and say, if Gentiles come from the east, my Erev is to the west, and from the west, my Erev is to the east. If they come from both directions, I shall go to the place I choose. If they do not come from either direction, I am as my town people. If a scholar comes from the east, my Erev is to the east. From the west, my Erev is to the west. If one comes to here and one comes to there, I shall go to the place I choose. If to neither direction, I am as my town people. Rabbi Yehuda says if one of the scholars was his teacher, he must go to his teacher. But if both were his teachers, he may go to the place he chooses. Reb Eliezer says if Yom Tov joins Shabbos either before or after it, a person may make two Eruvim and declare, "My Erev is for the first is to the east, and for the second to the west. To the first to the west, and for the second to the east. My Erev is for the first, but for the second I am as my town people. Well, my Erev is for the second, but for the first I am as my town people." But they come and say he makes an Erev in one direction, or he makes no Erev at all. Either he makes an Erev for both days, or he makes no Erev at all. How should one proceed? He should take it on the first day and stay with it until nightfall, and take it and go. And the second, he should stay with it until nightfall. Then eat it, and thus he benefits in his walking area, and he benefits from his Erev. If it was eaten on the first, the Erev is valid for the first, but the Erev is not valid for the second. Said Rebbe Eliezer, so you agree with me that there are two periods of holiness. Rabbi Yehuda says, if before Rosh Hashanah there was a concern lest Elo be full, a person may make two Erevim and declare, my Erev is for the first to the east and for the second to the west. For the first to the west and to the second to the east. My Erev is for the first, but for the second I am as my town people, or my Erev is for the second, but for the first I am as my town people, and the sages do not agree with him. Okay.
Okay. Od Amar Rabbi Yehuda. So very similar to the same principle basically as in this last Mishnah. Rabbi
Right.
Yehuda arguing with Chachamim about the Kedusha of Rosh Hashanah. It says,
Okay.
"Matnei Adam ala kalkala b'yom tov rishon v'ochla b'sheni." So if a person has some fruit that he picked before Yom Tov, and he forgot to take
Right.
the masras. Okay, so now you can't eat them on the Yom Tov. But if you've got 2 days of Yom Tov, um, and this, by the way, is something that you actually can do on Yom Tov Sheni Shel Galuyos for every other Yom Tov other than Rosh Hashanah. Is that you can say, okay, well, if today is the Yom Tov, then everything I was saying is just words and not effective.
Right.
But if today is Chol, then let this be the Truma for whatever, and you say the whole declaration of Trumas and Masras. And then on the next day you do the same thing again and say, okay, if yesterday was Yom Tov, then this is already Maased. But if
Right.
today is Yom Tov, then I'm separating this over here, blah, 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 the whole thing again. And now on the second day Yom Tov, you'd be allowed to eat the fruit. And says Rabbi Yehuda, you can do the same. You can do the same trick on Rosh Hashanah because Minatorah Rosh Hashanah is one day. So,
Right.
so there's the thing. Okay. Beyond Roshan v'ochla b'sheni. So you can do this whole trick, and you'll be able to eat the produce on Yom Tov Sheni. How v'chein beitza shenolda berishon teachel b'sheni. If the egg was laid on the first day Rosh Hashanah, you'd be allowed to eat it on the second day Rosh Hashanah
Mm.
because that's because Miman Afshach. Only one of the 2 days is Yom Tov, and either it was laid on Chol or it was waited for until Chol, in which case it's mutar. But lo hodelu Chachamim, because once again the Chachamim paskin that Yom Tov Sheni that the 2 days of Yom Tov of Rosh Hashanah are a single kedusha, and therefore there's no separating between them. And once something started out as aser, like the egg on Rosh Hashanah first day, it stays aser for Rosh Hashanah second day. Okay. Rabbi Dosa ben Harkinas Omer over lifnei teva b'yom tov rishon. While we're talking about Rosh Hashanah, um, he comes and says that there are changes in the nusach of davening on Rosh Hashanah. So the shaliach tzibur over lifnei teva, right? He comes on the first day of Rosh Hashanah says Hachelitenu Hashem Elokeinu es yom Rosh HaChodesh hazeh. He says, give us Hachelitenu. What's the translation of Hachlitenu?
This Rosh Kodesh, whether it is today or whether it will be
So what
tomorrow.
was the verb?
Or fortify us.
Fortify us, thank you. Right, fortify us also for this Rosh Chodesh, whether it's im hayom im lamachar, whether it's today or tomorrow. And the second day Rosh Hashanah he says im hayom im emesh, whether it was today or yesterday. So here again, he's making a verbal distinction between first day and second day Rosh Hashanah, that only one of them is really Rosh Hashanah. And Chachamim disagree with him. First of all, you don't even need to mention Rosh Chodesh on Rosh Hashanah because
Right.
it's incorporated in everything of Rosh Hashanah.
We
And
don't, we don't
secondly, you
even
don't
men-
have a distinction between the 2 days. It's a single Kedusha, as
we
before.
don't even ben- we don't bench Rosh Chodesh for Rosh Hashanah, the Shabbos before.
Yes, but that's not what we're talking about here.
I know. I'm just going to learn what you said that
Yeah, yeah, that's right.
yeah.
That's different reasons, but yeah. Okay. Um, all right, next parak. Misha hotzi uhu goyim or ruach ra'ah. So a person was taken out of his tuchum,
Hmm.
right?
Okay.
Whether he did it because he was kidnapped, Rahman al people took him and dragged him out of his tuchum, or he had a ruach shtus, took over him, and he was taken out of the Eruvin, and now he suddenly comes to, and now he's outside of his Tuchum. Ein lo ela arba amos. He's only got 4 amos that he's allowed to move inside. Okay. Hechziruhu ki'ilu lo yatsa. Now what happens if the goyim brought him back um and then into his tchum, then it's fine. It's ki'ilu he never left. Also, if he was the same thing goes that if his insanity temporarily came back and he went back into his tchum and then he became clear-headed again, he's still
Right.
he's still allowed to it's as if he never left. Okay. Holichuhu le'iracheres. What happens if they took him to a different city? Okay.
Right.
And Nisanuhu Badir or Basahar. Sorry, you okay?
I'm okay. Okay. Just I'm listening. Go ahead. Go ahead. I'm listening. I'm not doing
All right.
anything.
So the goyim who kidnapped him put him into some sort of an enclosure, like an animal enclosure. It doesn't even have to be a lockup or whatever, but it's a big area. So Rabban Gam,
Right.
Rabbi Elazar ben Azariah, Omrim, Mahalech Eskula. Okay, that's fine. So now he's been placed inside an enclosure, and therefore it's ki'ilu, like it's that those are his Dalit Amas,
That's right.
and therefore he'd be allowed to walk throughout that. Not okay. But Rabbi Yehoshua, Rabbi Akiva, Omrim, Eino Ela Arba Amos. No, he's still only got
Before
Amas that
for
he's placed in to move. Okay, so Maaseh, there was a practical case that happened with such a thing, where they were sailing from Shibaumi Brindisi, which is Brindisi in Italy.
oh
Okay, Brindisi. The Hifliga Safinasam Bayam, and the ship went out to sea, and now of course they're at sea over Shabbos, and the sea and the thing is sailing. Rabban Gamliel v'Rabbi Elazar ben Azariah hilchu es kula. They said, okay, well, I mean, this is at Tuchum. It's an enclosed space on the ship. There are railings around the side, and it's a rishus b'fnei atzma. Even if it sails miles over Shabbos, we're still inside
cool.
this enclosure, and therefore you're allowed to walk around the whole ship. ורבי יהושע ורבי עקיבא לא זזו מארבע amos שרצו להחמיר על עצמן. They did not move from their 4 amos that they were sitting in, and because they wanted to be machmir, in accordance with their own ruling, they wanted to make sure they wanted to be strict on themselves because of the case of I think they agreed that actually the halacha was like the others, but they wanted to make this demonstration of this is how we believe that it should be, that in a case where somebody was taken out of the tuchum on land, and even if
Right.
even if they were put into an enclosure over there, it wouldn't help.
Oh, okay.
Anyways,
Okay.
that's it.
Okay. Shabbos Chet Hey?
Chaf Daled Hey.
Dalet Hey. Okay. Chet Hey.
No, Chaf Daled Hey.
It's the other volume. Okay. Okay. Left Dalet Hey. We may annul vows on Sabbath, and we may seek release from vows for things that are necessary for the Sabbath. We may stop up a window, we may measure a patch or a mikvah. An incident occurred in the days of Ratzadik's father in the days of Abishua, but not this, that they stopped up the window with an earthenware jug and tied a cup with a rush to ascertain whether or that had an aperture of a handbreadth or not. And from the words we learned that we may stop up, measure, and tie on the Sabbath.
Hadron Alap Masech Shabbos, and let's do the first two in Eruvin now.
We finished Shabbos altogether?
That's the end of Shabbos over there, and now back
Oh,
to Eruvin Aleph Aleph.
no problem. Okay. And mudway and alleyway is higher than 20 cubits, then taller than 20 cubits must be lowered. Rabbi Yehuda says it need not, and one who is wider than 10 cubits must be narrowed. However, if it has the form of a doorway, even if it is wider than 10 cubits, it need not be narrowed. The adjustment of an alley, Rabbi Shammai says a pole and a crossbeam, but Beis Hillel says a pole or a crossbeam, and Rabbi Eliezer says two poles. A disciple in the presence of Rabbi Kippur stated in the name of Rabbi Yishmael ben Shammai and Beis Hillel did not differ concerning an alley which is narrower than 4 cubits, that it may be adjusted with a pole or crossbeam. Concerning what did they differ? Concerning which one is wider than 4 cubits and up to 10 cubits. Beis Shammai says a pole and a crossbeam. Beis Hillel says a pole or a crossbeam. Rabbi Kippur says they differed in both cases.
Okay. Okay. Okay, back to Shabbos.
Okay, not too confusing. Okay.
Shabbos Chesed, correct.
Um, red clay, enough for the seal of packing sacks. These are the words of Rabbi Akiva, but the Chachamim say enough for the seal of letters. Manure or fine sand enough to fertilize a cabbage stalk, and these are the words of Rabbi Akiva, but the sages say enough to fertilize a leek. Coarse sand enough to put on a full trowel of lime, a reed, large enough to make a pen, but if it was thick or cracked enough to cook it with the most easily cooked eggs, beaten and put in a stew pot. Bone enough to make a spoon. Rabbi Hader says enough to make a tooth of a key. Glass enough to scrape the point of a weaver's needle. A pebble, a stone large enough to throw at a bird. Rabbi Eliezer ben Yaakov says large enough to throw at an animal. A shard large enough to place between a board and one board and another. These are the words of Rabbi Yehuda. Rabbi Meir says large enough to pick up the fire therewith, and Rabbi Yoshi says large enough to contain a quarter log. Says with Meir, although there is no proof to the matter, there is an intimidation of the matter.
Intimation.
What
Intimation.
sorry? Intimation of that matter. And there shall not be found among his pieces a shard with which to pick up fire from the hearth. Rossi retorted, is there proof from there? And the verse concludes, or to scoop up water from a pit.
Okay.
Okay. Okay. Now we are two more.
Teruma.
Okay.
Teruma Yud.
You're
Yeah.
all that are pickled together are permitted except with leeks. Leeks of chulin with leeks of truma, vegetables of chulin and leeks of truma are forbidden, but leeks of chulin with vegetables of teruma are permitted. Reb Yoshi says anything that is stewed with beet is forbidden since it imparts a flavor. And Reb Shimon says cabbage from irrigated soil with cabbage from rainwater soil is forbidden because it absorbs. Reb Yehuda says all things cooked together are permitted except with meat. Reb Yochanan Menori says liver renders forbidden, but it is not rendered forbidden because it excludes but not absorbs. If an egg, if an egg is cooked with forbidden spices, even its yolk is forbidden because it absorbs. Liquid in which truma has been stewed or pickled is forbidden to non-priests. Okay, one
Hmm?
more.
No,
One may put.
that's
That's
it.
it.
That's it. Yeah.
Okay. Look both.
Yeah.
Okay, Vav base. If a bucket was full of utensils and one immersed them, they become tahor. But if they not need to immerse it, then the waters are not considered mingled, unless they mingle as much as the size of a water skin tube. If there are three mikvos, one containing 20 saw of water, and another also containing 20 saw of water, and the other containing 20 saw of drawn water, and the one with the drawn water is at its side, and three persons went down and immersed themselves therein, and the waters became mingled, the mikvos are tahor, and those that immerse themselves therein are tahor. If the one of drawn water was in the middle, and three persons went down and immersed themselves therein, and the waters became mingled, the mikvos are as if they were, and those that immerse themselves as they were. If a sponge or bucket contained 3 lugim of water and it fell into a mikveh, it does not disqualify it because all they said was 3 lugim fell in. If a chest or box was in the sea,
That's
one may not.
it. That's it. That's it.
Okay,
Yeah.
sorry.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, Chulin.
Okay, Dollar Gimel. If a fetus died in the womb of an animal and the shepherd stretched out his hand and touched it, whether it was a non-kosher animal or kosher, he's tahor. Rabbi Yossi Agili says if it is a non-kosher animal, he is tamei, and if it is a kosher animal, he is tahor. If a fetus died within a woman's womb and the midwife stretched out her hand and touched it, the midwife is tamei for 7 days, and the woman is tahor until the fetus comes out. Okay, it's interesting that they don't say anything about the shepherd reaching out his hand that he's tamei for 7 days. They don't
Well,
say anything about
because
that.
because an animal doesn't transmit 7 day tumor. Only humans have 7 day tumor.
Oh, fetus. Okay, I missed. All right, I missed. Okay, all right, I got it. Okay, sorry. If an animal is in difficult labor and the fetus thus forth its foreleg and one cut it off and afterwards he slaughtered its mother, the flesh is tahor. If he slaughtered its mother and afterwards he cut it off, the flesh is regarded as having touched a nevela. These other words are Rav Meir. But the comments say it is regarded as having touched a slaughtered treifa. Just as we find in the case of a treifa that its slaughter renders a tahor, so too through the slaughtering of the animal rendered the limb tahor. Replied Reb Meir, not so. If the shkita of a treifa renders a tahor, a thing which is in its own body should also render the limb tahor, a thing which is not its own body. Which is thing which is not its own body? From where do we learn that the slaughtering of a treifa renders a tahor? A non-kosher animal is prohibited to be eaten. A treifa is also prohibited to be eaten. Just as a non-kosher animal cannot be rendered tahor by its slaughtering, so should a treifa not be rendered tahor by its slaughtering. Not so. If this can be said of a non-kosher animal which never had a time of fitness, can the same be said of a treifa which had a time of fitness? Take back what you brought. If it was born treifa, how do we know it? Not so, because if this can be said of a non-kosher animal whose entire species has no shkita, then can the same be said of a treifa whose species has shkita? An 8th month live birth, its slaughtering does not render a tahor because there is no slaughtering in its kind. Okay. If one hey, if one slaughters an animal and finds it an 8 month fetus alive or dead, or a dead 9 month old fetus, he tears it open, takes it out its blood. And if he finds a 9 month live fetus, it requires slaughtering, but is subject to the prohibition of it and its offspring. These are the words of Rav Meir. But the comments say the slaughtering of its mother renders it permissible. The Mishna Zori says even if it is 8 years old and is plowing in the field, the slaughter of its mother renders it permissible. If he tore her open and found in her a 9 month live fetus, it requires shkita because his mother was not slaughtered. Okay.
Okay.
We go to Soto. Point out here.
First Nazir and then Sota.
Okay. Okay. Teshei. Small was a Nazir according to the opinion of Rabbi Neore, as it is stated, and no more shall come upon his head. It is stated with reference to Shimshon, Mora, Judges, Mora, and it was stated with reference to Shmuel, Mora. Just as Mora said in connection with Shimshon refers to a Nazir, so too Mora said in connection with Shmuel refers to a Nazir. Said Rabbi Yossi, but does not Mora not mean fear of flesh, blood? Rabbi Nori said to him, does it not already state? Shmuel said, how can I go? If Shaul heals, he will kill me. Which shows that he indeed had upon him the fear of flesh and blood.
Whereas Mora must be talking about a razor, not about fear. Hadan Allah Maseches Nazir. Okay. Sota.
So one who is born his wife, Rabbi earlier says he must water her in the presence of 2 witnesses, but he can give her a drink, the bitter waters on the testimony of 1 witness, even of his own testimony. Rabbi Shua says he must water her in the presence of 2 witnesses, and he can give her the drink, the bitter waters only on the testimony of 2 witnesses. How must he warn her? If he said to her in the presence of 2 witnesses, do not speak with so and so, and she spoke with him, she is still permitted to her husband, and she may eat truma. If she went with him into a secluded place and stayed with him long enough to become defiled, she is forbidden to her husband and forbidden to eat truma. And if he dies, she must receive a chalitza and cannot be taken in yibum.
Yeah. And that's it.
Okay. All right. Have a terrific day. Enjoy. I'll see you tomorrow then. Thank you.